in terms of male and female colors, well, what you're talking about is the cultural fact that men are encouraged to wear drab colors.
People listening on the radio may not realize that I'm wearing tortoiseshell eyeglasses and a mustard yellow polo shirt right now and feeling very indicted. I'm wearing camo socks. Judy Chicago, welcome to Bullseye. I'm so happy and delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I know that you are one of those folks who always imagined herself as an artist, even as a young kid. What did that mean to you when you were a young kid?
It meant I wanted to grow up and be a famous artist. And I grew up in Chicago. At 5, this is inconceivable to people now. I lived on this street called Bittersweet, which went 1 block from Clarendon to Marine Drive. And right across the street from us, there was a bus that stopped right there, and it went downtown to the Chicago Art Institute. And starting when I was 5, I would cross the street, get on the bus by myself, go downtown every Saturday to the Chicago Art Institute, where I started studying art.
I told my therapist once that I started doing that to go to school when I was 7. She got worried I was neglected.
Yeah, no, I know. Now that's like inconceivable that a parent would allow their child to do that. But I was perfectly fine.
What were you doing at the Chicago Institute of Art as a 5-year-old?
Taking art classes.
Well, what kind of classes?
Well,
were they classes for 5-year-olds?
They were children's classes. The Art Institute had something called the Junior School, very famous. A lot of famous artists came out of it. When I started at 5, I come from a very modest background. We had no money, and my mother borrowed a membership card from a friend of hers, because one of the perks of the membership card was that your kid could go downtown to these big classes. They were held in an auditorium. There were like 200 kids. There'd be models on stage or still lives, and we all drew. And then when I was 8, even though we didn't have any money, my mother managed to put together enough money to actually send me to junior school classes, which were small classes. And I had, I don't know, from the time I think I was 11 till the time I was 17, I had one teacher who nurtured me. And years later, in fact, when the dinner party was in Chicago, I took him for a tour around the dinner party, and he spoke very softly. And we walked around the dinner party arm in arm. And at the end, he said to me, "I always knew you were going to do something important."
That's as good as it gets.
Yeah, he said it. Manny Jacobson.
Did you think when you were a kid that being an artist was drawing and painting?
Yes. I was classically trained in drawing and painting. I mean, work from the model, they don't even teach drawing anymore in art school. It's disgraceful. And we used to go to the Field Museum and draw from skeletons of animals and from animals. So I was classically trained. And I remember when I was in my 40s, I was already living in New Mexico, and an artist named Bruce Nauman, who I came up with in LA, was also in New Mexico. So we started seeing each other, and I can still remember a conversation we had about drawing and about how when you're a young artist, you can get along with bravado and bluster. But when you become a mature artist, if you can't draw, you cannot translate your ideas into the real world. And that's only gotten more complicated by the fact that art schools don't teach drawing. And then there's the illusion that you can make anything on a laptop and that somehow it can be translated into a credible work of art, which is really hard to do if you're not David Hockney.
What did you learn in art school at UCLA?
UCLA? I learned, or I was supposed to learn, that that there had never been any great women artists, that you couldn't be a woman an artist too. The lessons I learned in my painting classes drove me into the sculpture department because there was a professor who, his name was Oliver Andrews, who was sympathetic to women and our aspirations, and he was supportive. But in the painting department, oh my God, first of all, most art school students, even when I was in school, were girls, were women, and they all imitated, their work looked just like their male professors. And I took one look at that, and I'm like, not me, I'm not taking those classes. I was also told my color sense was horrible. And of course, that's ludicrous because I'm known for my color. And they hated my early work, my early imagery. Oh, it looks like wombs and breasts. Yeah, well, guess what? I have them. But, I almost got kicked out of graduate school because I was such a rebel. And where my education really started is when I went to auto body school. I had a great teacher there. I had a show car painter. Do you know what that is?
This is like for auto shows?
Yeah, it's for like striping and, all that incredible painting. And he was a show car painter. His name was Percy Jeffries. And, I was raised in a pretty typical girl. Well, no, not because my father believed in equal rights for women, but in the sense that I never learned how shop or how to use tools. And so I never thought about a work of art as an object until I went to auto body school. And then I really realized that making art involves making objects, at least it used to. And Percy told me, Judy, there's no such thing as perfection. There's only the illusion of perfection, and I'm going to teach you how to achieve it, which he did. I can make a perfect surface from any material.
Can you freehand like a pinstripe? Can you make a straight line?
Nobody can freehand a pinstripe. Haven't you ever heard of masking tape? 16th inch masking tape? Oh my God. But I can tape like a maniac. That's the first thing you learn when I went to auto body school was taping.
How'd you pick auto body school out of all the things you could? I understand the impulse to learn a skill like that, but why did you pick that one and
it didn't
not
have
a different one?
It didn't have anything to do with like picking a skill. I wasn't going to go become a car painter. It had to do with an artist named John Chamberlain, who was a New York sculptor who was living in L.A., who I got friendly with because it was a period in L.A. where, there was almost no art scene in the 60s in L.A. It was just, the art market was just being built. I saw it being built. Art Forum had moved in, some New York galleries were opening, and they were bringing a lot of New York artists. And so I got to hang out with a lot of them, including John Chamberlain. And John Chamberlain compressed cars. He made sculptures out of compressed cars, which he spray painted with spray cans. And he used to go around saying, I had to go to auto body school and really learn to paint. Those guys know how to paint. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's where I'm going to go, because I didn't learn anything from my painting teachers at UCLA. They all painted in these horrible colors, influenced by an artist named Rico Lebrun who who loved browns and ochres and olive greens. And I'm like, candy apple, that's what I like. Pinks, ivories, turquoises, and lavenders horrified my painting teachers. Fit right in auto body school.
What did you gain from doing that? Like beyond simply the ability to paint on a car.
Well,
like, how did the skills that you learned there translate to other parts of your work?
Oh, are you kidding? I mean, I've sprayed everything now. I like airbrush is like my finger. I've sprayed automotive lacquer. I've sprayed enamel. I've sprayed acrylic. I've sprayed fabric paint. I've sprayed China paint. I've sprayed glass paint. I mean, I've sprayed my life away.
You were always into the kind of palettes that you've used in so much of your work, these kind of really intense, bold, purpley, pinky, aqua-y, like vivid, intense, wild colors.
Yep.
What's the appeal?
Well, it's really interesting because do you know what Pacific Standard Time was that these exhibitions the Getty does?
Yeah, it's like this big Los Angeles art exhibition series.
Yeah. Well, the first one, which dealt with Southern California art from the 40s till the 80s, and I was there for 20 of those years. And this is funny. It goes around, comes around. When I was there, working there, it was a decidedly male-centered scene, very inhospitable to women. I was basically the only woman artist in that milieu who was taken seriously. Fast forward to 2012, when Pacific Standard Time happened, by which time it was inconceivable to do a show with no women. And since I had been the only woman for so long, I was in like 8 museum shows. It was really funny. But anyway, in the show at the Getty, one of my male peers from the 60s complained about my inclusion because my color was too emotive, i.e. feminine.
Do you think those colors are feminine?
No, I don't think color has gender, but apparently this artist did.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for cultural associations with color. Like I wouldn't disagree with somebody that said it's a palette that is feminine in the same way that I might not disagree with somebody saying that you've used a lot of needlework in your art that has sort of historical cultural associations with women. Like, it doesn't seem crazy to me. I'm not an expert, but
I've also used fireworks. I've also cast in bronze, cast in glass, constructed major sculptures in stainless steel. Those are associated with men. Stupid. How do materials have gender? And historically, I know, of course, that needlework and China painting have been associated with women, but I didn't choose them because of that. I chose them because of their aesthetic potential. And in terms of male and female colors, well, what you're talking about is the cultural fact that men are encouraged to wear drab colors, and that's considered masculine. Well, I think that's stupid. Why shouldn't a man wear whatever he wants or they want? What?
People listening on the radio may not realize that I'm wearing tortoiseshell eyeglasses and a mustard yellow polo shirt right now and feeling very indicted. I'm wearing camo socks.
Well, those are definitely right.
Some of us are autumnal, Judy, in our coloring.
I don't care what you wear. I don't care what anybody wears. I just think it's interesting that there are all these gender associations imposed on things that really have no gender.
For sure. I mean, it's such a distinctive element of your work across all these different media. I mean, like, as you said, you've worked a lot with pyrotechnics of various kinds. And the pyrotechnics that you make are often incredible manifestations of these colors that you love.
Yeah, well, one of the things about colored smokes, which of course I started in LA, actually in Pasadena, is that it's like I call it painting in the sky because I can blend color in the air and create colors that you can't, that just don't exist in any other way.
Did you see a pyrotechnic show or something that made you think, oh, I should make that one of my media?
No, you want to know how I got into fireworks?
Yes.
Okay. I was living in Pasadena. I lived in a loft. This is incredible. This is inconceivable also to young artists. 3 artists, including me, rented a 5,000 square foot loft in Pasadena for a sum total of $75 a month.
Uh-huh.
And because that's what reality was, you didn't have to think about money. I never thought about money. I just never thought about money. And anyway, my loft was on the corner of Colorado Boulevard and Raymond, which was right in the middle of where the Rose Parade goes along Colorado Boulevard every New Year's Eve. And
I mean, a lot of folks know that as being where my therapist's office is, but also the Rose Parade is another distinguished. Go ahead.
right. And so what would happen is the night before, all of, thousands of people would come in to Pasadena and set up little camps. And they'd bring little stoves and they'd cook and they'd sleep and they'd, wait for the Rose Parade. So since I was always interested in bringing art to a broad audience, I thought there were a lot of artists living in Pasadena because artists love cheap space. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool for artists to do something on New Year's Eve to, like, bring some meaning to these people who are just sitting here freezing to death waiting for the Rose Parade. And so I organized a group of artists. We took over Raymond Avenue for a block from Colorado to Green, stretched screens across the front of the buildings, and various artists projected onto the screens and did performances. And we got 2 Klieg lights, and one at each end of the street, and I built color wheels for them. And I decided to kind of bring the street together by lining it with fog machines. So the fog is filling the street and rising up, and the Klieg lights are going around, and I'm looking up in the air, and there's this swirling color. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to do fireworks. And I knew nothing about them, but I've done a lot of techniques that I knew nothing about and discovered. That's kind of the fun. Discovery, that's for me what making art's about. Anyway, so those were the days you could just go out and buy colored smoke from a fireworks company. Me and a group of friends would all go out to different sites in and around Los Angeles, the desert, the mountains, no permits, no nothing. Everybody would do something. People would bring food. Everybody would help me light the smokes. Other people would take pictures. And I started this series that I called Atmospheres, which was an effort to feminize the male-built and sometimes brutal environment.
Well, leaving aside the associations with gender and taking needlework as an example, like what are the special qualities that needlework gives you as a medium?
Well, for example, when I was working on the Mary Wollstonecraft place setting for the dinner party, which depicts Mary Wollstonecraft, who wasn't, for those people who don't know who she was an 18th century feminist who was vilified for her views, which were expressed in a famous book called A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, which laid down the cornerstone in the end of the 18th century of modern feminism. She was called a hyena in petticoats. But anyway,
And the dinner party, for folks who haven't seen it, it's at the Brooklyn Museum in New York, is a kind of big room sized piece that is a equilateral triangle dinner setting, a table in a triangular form where each setting is for one historical, or in some cases like mythical, woman, and has a plate and the rest of a table setting, including a textile that is connected to that historical figure. It also has a big field in between that has the names of hundreds of other historical women. But that's sort of the general form
well,
of it.
the dinner party is a symbolic history of women in Western civilization. It's sort of history told through those who did the cooking throughout history, so to speak, and were erased from history. But anyway, Mary Wollstonecraft died giving birth 2 months after giving birth to her daughter Mary, who went on to write Frankenstein. And it was one of the first images of birth I'd ever attempted. It was very raw and graphic, and when I saw it translated into a variety of needle techniques, it softened the harshness of the image. And by then I'd gotten interested in the subject of birth, which at that time in the late 70s was absent or assumed to be absent from contemporary art. Turned out the imagery, contemporary art, there's a lot of it on the subject of birth, had been erased. And I realized that if I was going to take up the subject of birth, which is what I did next in the birth project, needlework was the perfect technique because it would soften the images, because birth can be very raw as a subject matter.
One of the things that I was thinking about as I was thinking about the dinner party, which I was seeing in Brooklyn, is what a project it was for you. Not just like that it was big, because it is big, or that it has a lot of media in it, which it also does. But just when I thought about the logistics of creating something like that, I was completely overwhelmed. Is that something that you're good at?
Well, apparently, the Birth Project has 85 exhibition units. It's never been shown together. And the logistics of doing that with people all over the world translating my images into needlework was quite complex. Similarly, the dinner party is only one of numerous major projects. I did a huge project with my husband, photographer Donald Woodman, 8 years. Also, transforming media. It primarily merges painting and photography in a way that's seamless. We had to invent the way to do it, and it was on the subject of the Holocaust, which of course is nobody wants to touch nowadays, even though it sheds incredible light on what's going on in our world, all over our world. Anyway, I've gone on to some of my fireworks pieces take 2 years to create, and many people and lots of logistics. Yeah, from the beginning of my career, I thought big. I still think big.
How many people worked on the dinner party?
Well, it's kind of delusional the way it's been presented, like the 400 people. But 400 people there, people have in their mind, oh yeah, 400 people got together and they all decided how to make the dinner party. No, the dinner party was my work, and there was a core group of maybe 20 people in the studio. And then there were people who came and went, did research. I was the director, and yeah, I guess it just comes natural to me. Collaboration comes naturally to me. I love to collaborate, but I collaborate in a different way. I collaborate in a way that encourages people to bring their own ideas into my projects and not be just robots. Like, I'll tell you a story about when I was lecturing in 1999 in New Zealand, and I was showing the Birth Project, and I mentioned the different needle workers who worked with me on different examples. And afterwards, this woman in the audience says, Judy, I was very struck by that you mentioned these women by name, because last week we had a male artist who did this talk about his work, and he kept saying he couldn't have done his work without his two assistants, who happened to be women. And afterwards, somebody in the audience said, what were their names? And he said, I don't remember. Anyway, so I believe in acknowledging everybody who works with me. I believe every voice is important. I believe in giving space to people.
You've made all kinds of new works in the last decade or so. You've also had a number of different forms of retrospective.
Mm-hmm.
When you see a bunch of your work from the full length of your career all in one place, is there anything you're surprised by?
Well, first of all, I didn't have my first retrospective till 2021 when I had the show at the De Young in San Francisco. And that was very overwhelming to me. Then Massimiliano Gioni at the New Museum, who is one of the best curators in the world, did Judy Chicago Herstory, in which he contextualized my work in the history of women's cultural production dating back to the 13th century, which is, of course, the history out of which I've worked. Then I had a show which is traveling and is now in Amsterdam at the Serpentine in London, also curated by a prominent curator named Hans Ulrich Obrist. And that looked at a whole different aspect of my career because that museum is smaller. It looked at the underlying vision of my work. And then the New Museum show was translated into another show that I referred to before at Luma in Arles in France. The combination of those four shows transformed the understanding of my work. As I said, it took 30 years for me to achieve the goal I set out when I started the dinner party, which was to have it permanently housed so that it did not repeat the story of erasure that the dinner party tells. And then after the dinner party was permanently housed, it took another 20 or 25 years to get the rest of my body of art out from behind the shadow of the dinner party. And those shows accomplished that, which was also very gratifying. But I'm still the same. I wake up in the morning And what is most important to me is to spend my time trying to make a contribution, trying to demonstrate that art can have a place in the world beyond decoration, money. I mean, like, what did somebody say? You don't talk about a Jackson Pollock anymore. You talk about a $118 million Jackson Pollock, as if that's what justifies the value of that work. I am completely opposed to that. I believe in the power of art to educate, inspire, and empower people. And that is what I will remain focused on till the day I die.
You weren't born with the name Judy Chicago. The Judy part, Judith, is your given name. But you had a few surnames. You'd been married twice and you had your maiden name. So there's three surnames when you chose the name Judy Chicago. Did you like go through a process? Did you have a blackboard with a list of possible ideas?
I don't really want to go back to that. That was a long time ago. I've written about it. It's certainly public knowledge about my changing my name. I'm more interested in what I'm going to do next.
I was really pumped because I had never seen the Art Forum advertisement that you took out, which I thought was spectacularly cool.
I didn't.
I thought it
I
was so
didn't
cool.
actually. I didn't actually take that out. Neither did my gallery dealer. It was my gallery dealer's idea, and then the guy who ran Art Forum, Phil Leader, he wanted him to do that ad, and he didn't want to pay. The dealer didn't want to pay for it, so Phil ran it anyway, and it just happened to coincide with the time that women all over the country were getting fed up with the sexism of the art world. So I was visiting a lot of women artist studios then, looking for my peers, looking for my history, and it was up in everybody's studio. So yeah, it's sort of.
You're wearing like a cool. You're in a boxing ring.
Oh yeah, I
with
know.
like with a ring woman behind you, like ready for she could be ready for you to like a cut woman. You got Judy Chicago on your sweatshirt, and it's also like it's like a name change announcement in the newspaper. It's like the coolest version that could ever be imagined of a name change announcement in the newspaper. Is a picture of you in boxing gloves in Art Forum.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you got a kick out of it.
Well, Judy, I'm so grateful to you for taking all this time to talk to me. It was really great to talk to you and really great to get to spend some time spending time with your work.
Okay, well, thanks for your interest. I hope people will enjoy the show.